Montana Territory, August 1873. The buzzards were already circling low when Naomi O'Connell found the children alone near the creek, their faces sunburned and hollow, their shoes gone. The boy was maybe 6. The girl, not more than 4. He had his arms around her like he could shield her from anything, but both of them flinched when Naomi stepped from her buckboard, skirts brushing the dry grass. "Where are your folks?" she asked gently, crouching low. The boy lifted his chin. "Gone." Naomi had seen death before during the winter of '69 when smallpox took her pa and brother, when she was left with a patch of land and her mother's rifle, but something about this was different. The kids were not scared. They were waiting. "They left us," he added. "Said a man would come for us, but he never did." Naomi's horse, Clover, snorted behind her. She reached into the wagon for the bundle of sourdough bread she had packed and handed it to the boy. "I am Naomi," she said. "You can come with me for now. I've got a warm stove and a pump that works." The boy held the bread with both hands. "I'm Henry," he mumbled, mouth already full. "My sister's Hope." Hope gave a tiny nod, eyes wide above her dirty cheeks. Naomi tucked a quiet breath behind her teeth and stood, brushing the dust from her skirt. They had no one. She knew what that felt like, the ache of it. She took their hands. 2 days later, she saw his dust trail first. Then the man himself, riding hard across the lower pasture, a chestnut gelding beneath him and a rifle strapped to his saddle. Naomi stepped onto the porch, resting a hand on the post as the rider drew close. He dismounted with the ease of someone born to the saddle. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a 3-day beard and a tiredness behind his eyes that said he had not slept much in a while. "I am looking for 2 children," he said. "A boy named Henry, a girl named Hope. Their parents," he stopped himself, jaw clenched. "I tracked their wagon up through the canyon. Found the bodies 2 miles past the ridge. Looks like a river crossing went bad. I have been searching for the kids since." Naomi studied him. He was younger than she had expected, maybe 28. Sun-darkened skin, calloused hands. He carried himself like someone who had lost more than he would ever admit. "They are inside," she said, "eating pie." His shoulders dropped. "Not much, just enough to notice. Thank God." She nodded toward the barn. "You can water your horse. I will bring them out." He hesitated. "I should tell you I am not kin. Their father was my friend. We drove cattle together for 3 years. He asked me if anything ever happened." "You are a good man," Naomi said simply. He looked down like he had not heard that in a long time. "Name's Jasper Finch. Naomi O'Connell." He nodded once. "Miss O'Connell." The children ran to him the moment they saw him. Henry wrapped his arms around Jasper's waist, holding on like an anchor. Hope clung to his leg and would not let go. Jasper crouched, arms around both of them. He closed his eyes, forehead resting atop Henry's hair. "I came as fast as I could," he whispered. Naomi turned away, giving them the moment. She had never seen anyone hold a child like that, like they were his own. Later, over supper, Henry told Jasper everything he remembered: the dust storm, their mother's scream, the wagon tipping, then the waiting. Hope fell asleep in his lap before the biscuits were gone. Jasper looked at Naomi over the table. "I was going to take them south to Wyoming. I have a quarter section there, fenced and working." Naomi folded her hands in her lap. "They have been through too much travel. I would not move them again so soon." He nodded. "I could stay here for a while, help on your land, pay for our keep." Naomi blinked. "You do not owe me anything." "I do," he said. "You kept them alive." She looked at him a long time, then said quietly, "I have 40 acres, half of it gone to wind. You want to help, then help." By the end of the week, Jasper had mended her roof, fixed the broken axle on her wagon, and dug a new well cover. He moved into the bunkhouse without being asked. Hope followed him like a shadow. Henry asked him to teach him how to shoot. Naomi caught herself watching him from the kitchen window, sleeves rolled up, sweat on his brow, hands steady on a post-hole digger. He was not just helping. He was building something. One evening, after supper, Naomi found him brushing down his horse outside the barn. "She needs a name," he said, nodding at the gray mare that had followed Naomi home from the auction last month. "You planning to ride her?" "I have not had time," Naomi said. "Too much to do." Jasper stepped back and handed her the brush. "Then make time." Naomi took it. Their fingers touched and something passed between them, quiet and certain. The next morning the saddle was already on the gray. A note tucked in the stirrup read, "She is yours now. Ride her when you need the wind." Naomi stared at the note, lips parting. The horse. He had given her the horse. By the end of the second month they had built a hen house, repaired the north fence, and planted a winter garden. Hope had begun to laugh again. Henry slept through the night. Jasper had not mentioned leaving once. One night they sat on the porch after the children had gone to bed. The moon was bright above the cottonwoods. Naomi handed him a cup of coffee. "I have been thinking," she said. He looked over at her. "I have 40 acres, she said. "Too much for one woman and 2 children, but just enough for 2 grown hands and a pair of little boots." He frowned slightly, unsure. Naomi met his eyes. "Take half of it, the west side. The creek runs through it. Good grazing." "Naomi, I am offering you land and a horse," she said, voice soft. "Seems only fair." He was quiet for a long moment, then said, "Why?" "Because I want you to stay." He looked down at his hands, then back at her. "You know I would give them anything. But I did not expect you would give anything to me." "I am not giving it to you for them," Naomi said. "I am giving it to you because you are the first man I have ever trusted." Jasper stood slowly, stepped close, and reached out. His hand brushed her cheek. "I have nothing to offer but a good back, a soft word, and a bad singing voice," he murmured. Naomi smiled. "Then I will take all of it." He leaned in, slow, giving her time to pull away. She did not. Her first kiss was not fireworks. It was steady, warm. The kind of kiss that said, "You are safe now." When they pulled apart, she whispered, "I never gave anyone my last name." Jasper touched his forehead to hers. "Then maybe I should take it." She breathed a laugh, eyes shining. "You better, Jasper Finch. Because I do not plan on letting you go." Their hands found each other in the dark, and the stars above the Montana sky burned like lanterns hung just for them. Jasper rose early, before the sky had finished turning from slate to lavender, and lit the stove in the bunkhouse with hands that moved from habit more than thought. The morning held a hush to it, the kind that stretched itself across the land like a blanket still warm from sleep. He pulled on his boots and stepped outside, boots crunching faint against the frost-bitten grass. The gray mare Naomi had begun calling Fern stood near the gate, ears forward. She'd been restless the night before, and Jasper had noticed a shallow nick along her flank. Probably a bramble from the creek. He opened the gate, gave her neck a quiet rub, and led her toward the trough. "You favor her," Naomi said, voice behind him, low and even. Jasper turned. She wore a shawl over her nightdress, arms folded, hair braided down her back in a single thick rope. She looked like quiet authority, the kind born from years of doing for herself and not asking for praise. "She's steady," he said. "Not fast, but she thinks before she runs." Naomi's gaze lingered on the horse, then shifted to the trail beyond the pasture. "There's a letter in the post. Came yesterday. I didn't open it. Addressed to you." His jaw shifted slightly. "Didn't think anyone had a reason to write." She handed it to him, folded and creased, the ink smudged a little from the wagon's jostling. He held it without opening it. "You going to read it?" she asked. "Eventually." Naomi didn't press. "I'll get the coffee on." He watched her walk back toward the house, her step sure even barefoot on cold ground. He'd seen that kind of strength before once, in a woman who buried 3 babies in 5 years and never stopped singing while she worked. Naomi didn't sing, but she didn't need to. The way she moved through the world said more than words ever could. The letter stayed in his coat pocket all through morning chores. When Henry came out with the milking pail and asked if he could try leading the calf, Jasper showed him how to hold the rope without wrapping it around his wrist. "You don't want to get dragged," he said. "Cow gets spooked. She'll take your hand with her." Henry nodded solemnly. "Would you still teach me if I didn't have a hand?" Jasper paused. "I'd teach you to use the other one. Then I'd teach you how to shoot left-handed, too." Henry grinned, gap-toothed and proud, and turned toward the barn. Inside the house, Naomi was kneading dough with Hope perched on a stool beside her, face dusted in flour. Jasper leaned in the doorway, watching the two of them. Hope was holding a fork upside down and pressing lines into the crust edges. Naomi didn't correct her. "You ever made a pie?" Naomi asked him without looking up. "Once," he replied. "It was more soup than pie when I was done." She half smiled. "Then you've got nowhere to go but up." He stepped in, washed his hands at the basin, and took a seat across the table. "You think the house could stand 2 more rooms?" Naomi's hands stilled. She looked up slowly. "Why? You said it yourself, 40 acres is too much for one woman. I figure if I'm staying, I ought to build on what's already here. Not just live off what you've done." She wiped her hands on her apron. "Where would you put them?" "West side, near the slope. Gets light in the morning. Could build a loft. Henry's getting taller. Won't fit in that bed forever." Naomi's eyes softened. "You thought it through." "I did." She didn't answer right away. Then, quiet, "I could help saw the planks." Jasper reached across the table, not bold, just steady. His hand covered hers, warm and calloused. She didn't pull away. "I want to build something that lasts, Naomi." Her eyes held his. "Then start with the floorboards. Everything solid begins from the ground up." By the end of the week, lumber had been carted in from town. Jasper spent the daylight hours measuring and cutting, Naomi beside him with a pencil tucked behind her ear and a ledger open on her lap. Hope napped in the shade under a quilt while Henry carried nails back and forth, proud as any ranch hand. One evening, after the frame had gone up and the roof was halfway laid, Jasper came to the porch where Naomi was sewing by lamplight. He sat beside her, silent for a while, watching the light flicker against her thread. "That letter," he said. She looked up. "It's from my sister," he continued. "Lives down near Cheyenne. She wrote to say our ma passed. I didn't know she'd taken ill." Naomi set her sewing aside. "Were you close?" "No," he said. "Not for years. I left at 16. Ma always said I had too much dust in my boots to stay put." Naomi picked up her mug and handed it to him. She might have been right, but that dust settled somewhere. He took a sip, then handed it back. "I don't feel much." "Should I?" "Grief's not a pattern," she said. "It comes when it wants, or not at all." He nodded, then looked at her, really looked. "You ever think about what comes after this house, these kids, you and me?" Naomi set the mug down carefully. "I do." His voice was quiet, edged in hope, "and I think it's worth keeping." He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small, square bundle wrapped in cloth. "I didn't plan it," he said, "but I saw this in town. Thought maybe it'd be yours if you'd let it be." He unwrapped it, a silver brooch shaped like a sprig of sage, worn at the edges but still gleaming. Naomi's breath caught. "I can't offer gold," he said, "but I can promise roots." She touched the brooch like it might disappear. "Sage holds its scent through winter." "Then maybe it's right." She fastened it at her collar, careful fingers trembling just slightly. Then she rose and stood before him. "I've never been one for ceremony," she said, But if you're asking me to build this life with you, I am, Jasper said. Then I say yes. He stood too, and this time when he kissed her, it wasn't the first kiss of promise. It was the second for keeping. Inside, the fire burned low. Outside, the stars bore witness as two people, once scattered by loss, began to make something that would hold. The first frost clung to the fence rails and the tips of the last standing grass when Naomi stepped outside with the morning pail. Her breath rose in small silver clouds. The chickens had gone quiet with the colder nights, and the garden lay in hibernation under burlap and straw. She paused on the porch, eyes drifting to the new frame rising on the west slope, 2 rooms, rafters now in place, ready for siding. Jasper was already there, balancing on the beams in his shirt sleeves, hammer in hand. He moved with the confidence of a man who'd spent years building with little more than instinct and a square eye. Sweat beaded at his temples despite the chill. "You're courting trouble without gloves," Naomi called out. He looked down, squinting through the pale sun. "I've got trouble enough. Figure I might as well befriend it." She didn't laugh, but the lines around her eyes softened. "Befriend it with breakfast, then. You've earned it." He climbed down slow, boots steady on the ladder. When he reached her, she handed him a slice of cold cornbread wrapped in cloth. He took it with a nod and leaned against the porch rail. "You ever think about what you want done with the place, years from now?" he asked, voice low. "When Henry's grown, when Hope has her own porch." Naomi looked out past the barn where a hawk circled high above the cottonwoods. "I want it to stay lived in. I don't care who's got their name on the deed, long as someone's tending the hearth." Jasper chewed slowly. "You'd let go of it if it meant it stayed alive." "I've let go of things before," she said. "Not everything needs to be gripped tight to stay yours." He looked down at his hands, calloused and cracked. "I've only ever held on too long or not at all. Then maybe it's time you learn the in-between." He folded the cloth, set it on the rail, and looked at her. "You teach me," she met his gaze. "Only if you're willing to fail a few times getting there." He smiled, quiet and real, and reached for her hand. She let him take it. Later that afternoon, Naomi rode Fern along the east ridge, checking the winter fence line. The mare moved smooth and even, used to the land now. Naomi wore her wool coat buttoned to the collar, the brooch Jasper had given her catching the light every few steps. She didn't rush the ride. The land deserved her eyes. At the far end of the pasture, she saw a rider on the trail, coming slow. Brown hat, bay horse, saddle worn smooth. As he drew closer, she recognized the face Levy Granger, who'd once worked her father's land for a season, years before the fever took him. He tipped his hat. "Didn't expect to see you still out here. Figured a woman alone might have sold up by now." Naomi kept her seat steady. "I'm not alone." He glanced back toward the house. "That your man building on the slope? He is." Levy scratched his jaw, eyes narrowing. "You trust him?" "I do." He shifted in the saddle. "Just be careful, Naomi. Not every man who builds stays." She tugged the reins gently. "I know what I've got." When she returned, Jasper was splitting kindling near the shed. She dismounted and handed him the reins. "You know a man named Granger?" she asked. He looked up. "Heard the name. Rode for the Circle R a while back. He passed through, said I ought to be careful." Jasper set the axe aside. "You think he's right. I think I've been careful long enough." He stepped closer, brushing sawdust from his sleeves. "You don't need to defend me." "I'm not," she said. "I'm telling you what I told him." He studied her face, then said, "I've got no plans to leave." "Then stop waiting for permission to stay." That night, Jasper brought in a cedar beam he'd planed earlier. He laid it across the front room floor and knelt to mark it. "What's that for?" Naomi asked, watching from the hearth. He looked up. "Threshold. Figured we ought to have one that holds." She crossed the room, knelt beside him. What'll you carve into it? He ran his thumb along the grain. Don't need words, just wait. She placed her hand over his. Then let it be ours. He turned his hand, laced his fingers through hers. Naomi Finch's threshold, she nodded. That's the name I want on it. Their joined hands rested against the cedar and the fire behind them crackled low, steady, nothing rushed, nothing shaken loose. Just two people, sure now, in the quiet of something lasting. Outside, the wind shifted, bending the tall grass toward the earth. Inside, the weight of their lives began to settle into place firm, rooted and ready for all that would come. The snow came early that year, quiet and thick. It blanketed the slope and softened the edges of the world, muting the sound of the wind and turning the land into something almost holy. Naomi stood at the window with her shawl wrapped tight, eyes on the barn, where a thin line of smoke curled from the chimney of the bunkhouse. Jasper had taken Henry to check the traps that morning, leaving Hope with her sewing cards and a plate of dried apples. Naomi's hands were idle for once, the bread already risen, the wash folded, the stove humming low with heat. She let herself be still, just long enough to feel the weight of the quiet. Hope was humming to herself, legs swinging from the chair. The tune was crooked and half-remembered, but Naomi didn't correct her. She crossed the floor and knelt beside her. "Where'd you learn that?" she asked softly. Hope shrugged. "Henry sang it last night, said Jasper used to sing it when we were little." Naomi smoothed the girl's hair back. "You remember much from before?" Hope's eyes drifted toward the window. "Only the parts that felt safe." Naomi didn't press. She kissed the top of her head and rose. The kettle began to hiss. By the time Jasper returned with Henry, both of them dusted white. The light had started to shift gold. Jasper's coat was stiff with cold, his beard frosted at the edges. Henry's cheeks were ruddy, his hands full of rabbit pelts. He looked taller somehow, as though the cold had stretched him. "We caught two," he said, proud. "I helped skin one." Jasper brushed the snow from his shoulders, eyes on Naomi. "He's got a steady hand, didn't flinch once." Naomi raised an eyebrow. "That's so?" Henry nodded, beaming. "He said I've got the makings of a trapper." "Trap if you must," Naomi said, "but you'll be cleaning the pans too." Henry groaned, but Hope giggled. Jasper handed Naomi a canvas sack and slipped out of his coat. She opened it to find 2 pine cones, a small bundle of dried sage and a single feather tucked between them. "Hope found the feather last week," Jasper said, quiet. "Said you ought to have it." Naomi turned it in her fingers. It was soft gray, streaked with darker bands. "You make a habit of collecting things for me." His voice was low. "Only the ones that last longer than winter." That night, after the children had gone to sleep in the loft above the kitchen, Naomi found Jasper at the edge of the field where the new rooms stood finished but empty. He was leaning on the fence rail, eyes on the stars. She walked to him, her boots crunching softly through the crusted snow. "You've been quiet," she said. He glanced at her. "Just thinking." "About," he took a breath. "I never had a place to bring anyone back to, just drifted. From town to trail, job to job, I never thought I'd build something that had my name on it." Naomi rested her hands on the rail beside his. "It doesn't have to carry just one name." He looked at her, brow furrowed. "You mean that?" "I do." He studied her a long moment. "You'd let me take it?" "Your name?" "I'm not giving it," she said. "We'd carry it together, like the land, like the work." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a thin strip of leather looped through a small silver ring. "I bought this in town 2 weeks ago. Thought maybe I'd wait for spring, but I'm done waiting." Naomi's breath caught. "I haven't got words like yours," he said. "But I know what I want, and it's you, this life, these hands." She took the ring, fingers steady, eyes never leaving his. "Then you've got it." He slipped it onto her finger, slow and sure. They stood there under the starlight, quiet and rooted. Naomi leaned into his shoulder and he turned to press a kiss to her temple. "You reckon it'll be a good winter?" he asked. "With you here," she said. "It already is." And in the hush between one snowfall and the next, they stood together at the edge of everything they'd built, bound not by vow or paper, but by the simple weight of what they'd chosen: a shared name, a hard-won peace, and the kind of love that didn't need declaring. It just needed living. By late February, the new rooms were finished. The walls held their shape against the wind, the seams tight, the floorboards clean and dry beneath wool rugs Naomi had traded for in town. Henry had chosen the loft space above the pantry, where he could look down into the kitchen and pretend to stand watch. Hope's bed stood under the west window, where the light poured in soft and gold each morning. Jasper had carved their initials into one of the beams near the doorway, not for show, just a small mark, hidden beneath the coat hooks, for them to know. One morning, with the snow beginning to melt in patches near the south fence, Naomi found herself preparing a basket of dried beans, biscuits, and a jar of pickled beets. "They've been shut in too long," she told Jasper. "I thought we'd take them to the river bend." "Let them run, breathe." Jasper glanced up from the tack he was oiling. "I'll ready the team." The sleigh, though worn, still held strong. They wrapped the children in quilts and took the long way around the ridge, where the bare cottonwoods stood tall, and the ice along the river had begun to crack and shift. Henry spotted a fox track in the snow, and followed it with careful steps, while Jasper walked alongside, pointing out where the creature had circled and doubled back. Naomi spread the blanket near a dry patch, laid out the food, and let Hope rest in her lap while she watched the slow procession of clouds overhead. Jasper sat beside them, knees drawn, hands clasped loosely in front of him. "You ever think your life would look like this?" Naomi asked, her voice low so as not to wake Hope. Jasper didn't answer right away. "There were years I didn't think I'd live long enough to wonder." She turned to him. "And now," he looked at her, "now I think I'd like to grow old in this valley. Watch Henry build something of his own. Walk Hope down that river path when she's grown, and fall asleep each night with your hand in mine." Naomi didn't speak. She didn't need to. She reached for him, fingers threading through his, and rested her head against his shoulder. The quiet between them was full, like water in a deep well. By spring, Jasper had built a pen for 2 ewes and their lambs. Naomi tended their coats with shears passed down from her mother, and Hope helped carry feed, her small boots leaving neat prints in the soft dirt. Henry had taken to whittling scrap wood into little animals, lining them up along the windowsill. One afternoon, Naomi and Jasper stood near the edge of the pasture, watching the children chase each other through the tall grass. "I've been thinking about something," Jasper said, eyes on the ridge. Naomi waited. "I want to make it official," he said. "Not for us we already know, but for the land, for them." Naomi folded her arms. "You want to marry?" "I do." She was quiet for a breath. "You sure you want to tie yourself to a woman who's more stubborn than the mule and twice as hard to wake?" Jasper turned to her, smiling faint. "I've never been more certain of anything." They married in their field, under the cottonwoods, with Henry holding a tin ring box and Hope carrying a basket of wildflowers. Naomi wore her mother's shawl, and Jasper had trimmed his beard to something almost neat. They spoke their vows soft and plain, without fuss. The words didn't need dressing. They already lived them. That night, after the children were asleep and the fire burned low, Naomi leaned against Jasper on the porch bench, their hands resting between them. "You happy?" he asked. "I'm something deeper than happy," she said. "I'm content." He looked down at her, eyes steady. "I'll keep earning that. You already have." The wind carried the scent of sage and the faint rustle of the grass. The moon hung full above the trees, a witness to the life they'd built. Years passed. Henry grew into his shoulders and took over the trapping line along the ridge. Hope learned to read by the oil lamp and later wrote her name in the ledger beside the first calf born under their brand. Jasper taught them both to ride, to carve, to patch a saddle, to speak when it mattered and hold silence when it didn't. Naomi grew silver at the temples, and Jasper's hands grew stiffer with each winter, but they moved through the seasons like a pair of roots bound beneath the same soil. They built a second barn, then a smokehouse, then a root cellar. The land gave back what they put in. One summer morning, Naomi stood at the edge of the porch, watching the sun rise over the slope. Jasper brought her a mug of coffee and kissed her cheek, soft and worn with time. "Did you ever think," she whispered, "that you'd be loved like this?" He looked out at the land, the house, the fence line stretching into morning. "Not once," he said. "But now I can't imagine anything else." She leaned into him, and together they watched the light spill across the field, golden and wide as their life unfolded beneath it, quiet, steady, and whole.